Welcome to r/petty revenge. The day I was invisible. Years ago, I worked at a public school. The district assigned us a temporary administrator, a man who knew what was wrong with everyone and everything and just how to fix it all. He drove us up the wall. I spent his entire time with us, making bets on who would be first to cram him into a locker. One thing he hated was how other people would go to deal with things, leaving the command center, which is the office, instead of commanding. One day, he walked into the office and the receptionist was in the restroom, the principal was in a meeting, and the office manager had gone to look at something. I, the registrar, was working head down at my desk. That man walked into the middle of the room and announced on the radio to 15 people, criticizing all of them, including the principal in her meeting. This office is completely empty. What if a parent walked in? He was 5 feet from me. I picked up my radio and said to him and 15 other people, "Doctor, I'm right here." "Hi, your glasses are on your head, sir." Small but very satisfying. Story 2. Give out my phone number so you do not get calls. Cool. About 3 or 4 years ago, I started getting spam calls from realtors or real estate scammers. Who knows, looking for Roy. They spammed me for a week or two, then it stopped. I forgot about it and moved on. Every once in a while, I would get another one. Every time, it was about Roy selling property in a state on the opposite side of the country. Instead of telling the caller off like usual, I talked to them one night. They were happy to give me Roy's full name and the address of the property he kept dangling for sale. I looked him up. He had been using my phone number on all the real estate websites, so he did not get bothered with calls. The calls died off. I forgot about it again. About 2 months ago, they started back up again. I remembered where I had written down Roy's information and checked him again for an updated phone number. This time I lucked out and found his real cell phone. I considered texting him to stop giving out my number, but I did not want to deal with a crochet old man who thought he was getting one over on a stranger. The very next day, I got yet another phone call with an out-of-state area code. "Oh, are you looking for Roy? Hang on a second, let me get you his phone number. It is 999-555-1212. Are you related to Roy?" "Nope, never met the man or been to that city. I live about 3,000 miles away. But that bastard has been giving out my phone number for 4 years. So I did some research and found him. I do not know what you do for a living, but you should really be an investigator." "Why, thank you. I am. Would you mind updating your system with that phone number instead?" "I certainly will. Thank you for being so nice about this. I have not gotten a single call since. Fuck you, Roy. I looked up your house on Google Maps. It is not the palace you think it is. Edit 2, because I keep getting notifications. He never intended to sell the property. He was checking the property value. When the websites say, enter your address here to find out how much glorious money your home is worth. Roy puts in his own name, but my phone number, because you have to enter a phone number to see how much realtor would theoretically sell his home for. He then sees that his hovel is only worth $75 and a bag of stale circus peanuts, goes back to mumbling about no one respecting him, and I wind up getting all the marketing phone calls. Well, until I started giving them his phone number to enter into their databases and distribution lists. It is a very stupid and inaccurate way to track one's potential property value, but we shouldn't expect much from Roy, since he made it so easy for me to find his entire life history. Hopefully this will clear up any lingering confusion. Story 3. Sit there laughing at me at the petrol station. I will inconvenience you even more. This was a few years ago. I pulled into my local petrol station. All the pumps were in use, so I pulled up behind one of the pumps, waiting for the van, using it to finish and move off. After quite a few minutes, the driver casually strolled out of the shop in no hurry, despite the queue at the busy forecourt, and walked to his van. He could see that I and several other vehicles were queuing to use the pumps. The van driver and the pump next to him was obviously a friend. That driver finished up, and the two of them stood and had a chat. They were aware of us waiting and were clearly loving the fact that they were holding us all up, even turning to laugh arrogantly at the guy waiting next to me who called to them to move away from the pumps. This went on for 5 minutes more until they got bored of their silly game and drove off. The moron was a plasterer and had his name and phone number written all over his van, plying his trade. Oh boy, I am petty and made a note of his details. A few weeks later, I called him up and said I had bought a house in need of renovation and needed a quote to board out and skim the entire house. Oh, he was only too happy to quote for a big project, assuring me he was great at his trade and I could not find a better quote. We discussed his availability, and he was keen to come and look at the job. I gave him the address of a rundown house a few streets away from me that had recently sold at auction. He knew the property. He had driven past it a few times and noticed it was up for auction. We arranged for him to call the following day. Of course, I wasn't there. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. He rang a few times and left a voicemail checking where I was. Eventually, I called him back, very apologetic, said my husband had fallen off a ladder and I had to take him to accident and emergency. He said, okay, I will rearrange the visit. We arranged another time a few days later. The next appointment came, and I had 2 more messages from him, clearly annoyed I was not there again. I called him back again and apologized. I said I could totally understand his anger and wasted time. It reminded me of the time I was sat at a petrol station a few weeks ago and some idiot and his mate stood having a good old chat while laughing at the drivers waiting to use the pumps. I heard the penny drop. That was when the raging and swearing started, which just set me off roaring with laughter. I made my point. It was fabulous. I spent the next few weeks blocking various numbers, sending abusive texts, but he got bored of that eventually. I hope he learned that actions have consequences. Thank you for watching.